MAGA is having a total meltdown after Indiana Republicans soundly reject Trump's attempt at election interference.
Democracy doesn't entitle an occupant of the Oval Office to anything.
It is so exciting to bring y'all some good news from Indiana. Make sure you subscribe to Really American, share this video and comment so we can keep the conversation going. Let's get into it. Bringing an end to a months-long saga, 21 Indiana Republican state senators joined Democrats to vote no on the maps, leading to them failing in a 31-19 vote. MAGA is all over social media expressing their disdain and frustration for what happened in Indianapolis today. Former Rapid Response Manager for the White House, Greg Price, posted the vote results and said, "Pathetic." The Williamson County GOP in Tennessee said, "Sad," as they posted a photo of the same thing. And there's no doubt that Trump's Truth Social tantrum is probably just minutes away. Trump and his cronies designed these maps in a desperate attempt to pick up 2 more congressional seats in 2026. The Indiana State House announced it had the votes very early on in the process, but until today, it was unclear what direction the Indiana State Senate was going to go. These proposed maps were beyond laughable. They actually chopped up the city of Indianapolis into 4 congressional districts, blatantly disenfranchising Black and brown voters in Indiana. And despite what most people think, Indiana is not bright red, as so many MAGA freaks have been insisting over the last several months. Around 45% of voters in Indiana consistently vote for Democrats, yet Republicans already have a ridiculous advantage in the Hoosier state. Republicans make up a 73% supermajority in the Indiana State House and an 82% majority in our congressional delegation. And those percentages show just how deeply unpopular this whole map rigging scheme has been from the beginning. Ever since we started hearing the rumblings of congressional map shenanigans in Texas, organizations like Common Cause have been doing polling around the country, and consistently it shows that this kind of election scheme is really unpopular with everybody, not just Democrats, with Republicans too. And those stats were on full display in Indianapolis this week. Over a couple of days, the Indiana General Assembly heard public testimony on the proposed maps. 80 Hoosiers stood up opposing the maps, while only 19 spoke in support.
Over the past 4 months, we have heard from thousands of Hoosiers who overwhelmingly oppose mid-decade redistricting. In just the past week, we have collected testimonies from more than 500 Hoosiers. Here's a small sample of what your constituents have to say. Lisa L. of Charlestown, a lifelong Republican, will not vote for anyone who participates in cheating.
Trump's focus on Indiana began over the summer when he sent J.D. Vance to Indianapolis to have the first of several meetings with Indiana's super MAGA governor Mike Braun and Republican leaders in the state legislature. And from that very first visit, Hoosiers made it super clear how they feel about this bullshit.
Lots of people here in the State House. They were in the rotunda, hundreds of people gathering, many of them with signs, and they were making it clear their stance on Vice President J.D. Vance's visit here to the state capitol. Vance leaving the State House after a morning meeting with top Republican lawmakers, as we have heard, and including Governor Braun. Well, they talked about the potential effort to redraw Indiana's congressional districts, and I spoke with Kevin Galley about that, who moved here in 2018 from Wisconsin. He talked about President Donald Trump saying that the GOP is entitled to congressional seats in Texas, and this is the next step here in Indiana.
Democracy doesn't entitle an occupant of the Oval Office to anything.
Guess who's here right now? JD is here, speaking with Governor Braun right
That protest at the State House, along with subsequent protests in opposition to this mid-decade map redrawing nonsense, was hosted by MAD voters in partnership with Common Cause and Democratic leaders in the Indiana State Legislature. The MAD voters website and social media feeds gave daily instructions of exactly what Hoosiers needed to do and who they needed to call to keep reinforcing their opposition to this kind of federal interference in Indiana's elections. And there is no doubt that all of those phone calls and protests swayed Indiana Republicans. This battle in Indiana was always going to come down to who are Republicans more afraid of, their voters or President Trump. Indiana Governor Mike Braun alluded to threats from Trump, saying that federal funding could be in jeopardy if Indiana did not get this done. And just a few weeks before the vote was taken, Trump's Truth Social tantrums called out some Indiana Republican senators by name. And as a result, many of these legislators received threats of violence. On top of Trump's threats, like the creepy little vulture he is, MAGA Indiana Senator Jim Banks held an event in September where he invoked the death of Charlie Kirk, saying, "This is what Charlie would have wanted. We need to pass the maps in his memory." After the Texas state legislature passed their new congressional maps that were designed to give Republicans 5 more seats in D.C., Trump started putting pressure on other GOP-led states like Missouri, Ohio, Florida, and Indiana. Trump received a little bit of good news when the Supreme Court ruled last week that Texas could use their obviously racially gerrymandered maps in the 2026 midterms, but this defeat in Indiana and ongoing conflict in other Republican-led state legislatures does not bode well for Trump and his bullshit agenda. Trump continuously put pressure on Indiana Republicans to go along with his plan, posting as recently as Thursday morning, right before the Senate vote on Truth Social, "Anybody that votes against redistricting and the success of the Republican Party in D.C. will be, I am sure, met with a MAGA primary in the spring. If Republicans will not do what is necessary to save our country, they will eventually lose everything to Democrats," threatening that Indiana State Senate leader Roderick Bray and his friends won't be in politics for long, and I will do everything within my power to make sure that they will not hurt the Republican Party and our country again. Putting the jokes aside for just a second, it's important to remember that Trump calling out lawmakers by name on Truth Social has had real consequences, big threats of political violence. And I really hope that the side who freaked the fuck out and started firing teachers in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death will actually stand up against political violence and not just do so when it's convenient for them. This resistance happening in Indiana is an inspiration for voters all around the country, regardless of the political makeup where they live. And for more inspiring stories of MAGA's defeats, be sure you subscribe to Really American and share this video with someone in your life so we can keep the conversation going. For Really American Media, reporting proudly with good news from Indiana, I am Corinne Straight. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see y'all next time.